Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes are having a monster recruiting weekend this week. Here's everything you need to know about the big visitors that'll be in Boulder.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. You can also check me out over on Athlon Sports, where I'm covering all things college football, all things NBA, and everything in between. So let's dive in. The Buffs, as confirmed by Scott Proctor over at DNVR, are having a huge weekend this week. On the recruiting trail, right? They're looking to make some moves. And I think a lot of people have been getting on Deion Sanders over the past few years for not recruiting well. And I think those people aren't paying attention enough, right? Deion Sanders recruits well. He just hasn't been recruiting large quantities of classes. And so the Buffs are going to have a pretty big group in town this week. And so I'm going to give you the skinny on all of the guys who will be in Boulder, because as it stands right now, the Buffs 2026 class has one commitment in D'Amato Pekka Jr., who is the son of their new defense line coach. He is also at the junior college level, so one of the top junior college level players, but they're trying to get some other top tier guys. So without further ado, let's dive in. The headliner of the weekend is Cederian Morgan, 6'5" wide receiver, number 13 player in the class. It's between Bama and Auburn for him, or at least that's what the insiders on the recruiting world think. They think it's going to come down to those two programs. Freak athlete, right? He averages 14 points per game in basketball. He's also grabbing 11 boards per game. And then this past year, he led his team to the playoffs. He had 70 catches for over 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns, right? I know Coach Prime. I know Colorado love themselves some big receivers, right? Xavier Weaver was on the bigger side, more vertical. He wasn't super tall, but he played bigger than his size. Will Sheppard was ginormous. I think when I went to the East-West Shrine Bowl this past, I think it was a couple months ago now, I was genuinely shocked to see how big Will Sheppard was compared to the other players in attendance. So Cederian Morgan, I think, would be the splashiest acquisition of these six guys. Anytime Coach Prime can get a 5-star, I think that sends waves throughout. And realistically, I think he's really good at recruiting 5-stars at skill positions, right? And he even got one at the quarterback position this past year with Julius Miles. So maybe get him a 5-star weapon to throw to. Next recruit on the list, Dorian Barney, 4-star DB, has 50-plus offers. 50. 6'1", an absolute menace on the defensive side of the ball. He was a 1-point committed to Alabama. Now he's back on the market. He has just about every program you can imagine coming after him. But it is worth noting, he was high school teammates with one Mr. Julian Lewis. So I imagine Juju is sort of giving him the, hey, come on down to Boulder, right? You know what, I'm over here, right? They had some success at the high school level, so why would they not want to play together again at the college level? So you have Dorian Barney, defensive back, another defensive back, or I guess we'll call him a two-way guy for now. He's listed as an athlete, projects as a safety, but he does play some running back. Donovan Webb, 4-star out of Texas. Michigan's after him. Ohio State's after him. TCU's after him. Baylor's after him. He had 5 picks last year. Had some damage on the run. Did some damage on the run game. Rushed for over 100 yards. Another guy who I think we already knew the states that Deion Sanders wanted to target, right? It's Florida. It's Georgia. Now he's really starting to dabble in Texas. And it doesn't hurt to have some Texans on the team because those guys – They breathe football down there. And I mean, they do all of these places, but Texans, Coach Prime is well aware. That's where not he's from, but his kids were from technically. So he knows a little thing or two about Texans. Next guy, I want to say it's G'nivre Carr. I could be wrong. I definitely apologize if I'm butchering the heck out of that, but big dude, 3-star offensive lineman, 6'4", 336. He has Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina coming after him. He plays for IMG, and I think a lot of people don't really, at least acknowledge. I won't say they don't understand, but they don't acknowledge how much a high school teammate can factor into a recruitment. Right? Jordan Seaton went to IMG. McPherson, the defensive lineman, pass rusher. He went to IMG. I feel like I'm missing someone. Cash Cleveland did go to IMG, but is no longer with the program. Coach Prime is sort of trying to build a pipeline to IMG. And so having guys like Jordan Seaton who can be like, hey, I'm having success here. You should come here. We should link up, right? I think that means the world. And for some of these guys, all it takes is for one friend or one guy who they think is cool to be like, hey, come play. Come to my school. And they're like, oh, shoot, yeah, this would be dope, right? So, again, really big size. And I talked about this quite frequently when I was talking about Colorado's transfer portal haul. You could tell the change in philosophy from the offensive lineman has just gone from finding whoever, which I mean was never a great strategy to begin with, but now they're trying to build like an SEC caliber offensive line. You look at the guys that they brought in just in the transfer portal this past spring and winter windows, they're getting some girth, right? This offensive line looks very much like an SEC offensive line. Larry Johnson III, the Tennessee commit, or the Tennessee transfer, 6'7", 350, right? He's a big guy. Xavier Hill started his career at LSU, he's going to finish it at Colorado, but was at Memphis the past couple of years, 6'4", 320. Montaimini, 6'4", 345, came from Ole Miss. Zylan Chrysler, played in the Big Ten, still very big, 6'6", 335. Cederian McGill is probably the smallest guy. Could be the smartest. I mean, he plays center. Cederian McGill is probably the smallest guy at 6'2", 308. And then you have Aki Ogun. I call him Aki OG because I don't want to butcher his last name out of respect. 6'4", 314. So they brought in a ton of guys that are all big. They all have size. They're all, for the most part, have some sort of experience. And I think you're starting to see this strategy make its way or seep its way into the high school recruiting ranks because like they want to recruit big guys who have big frames that could develop into SEC, not caliber. I mean, I guess SEC caliber, but SEC-like offensive linemen because the teams that are winning the most games in college football, obviously they have money. Obviously they have blue chip recruits, but for the most part, they have really good offensive line play, right? Name me a team that has won a title in any sport, really, or in any, whether it's college football or the NFL, that has had a terrible offensive line, right? So if Colorado wants to take that next step as a program, they no longer have Shedeur Sanders, they no longer have Travis Hunter. So getting recruits like Mr. Carr here, who's 6'4", 336, and can develop into a multi-year starter in the interior offensive line, it's a pretty big deal, right? So that's my offensive line spiel for the day. I think they're going real hard after big guys. Let's move on to another four-star safety, Jordan Deck. 36 offers, Baylor, Ole Miss, Penn State, Michigan, UCLA, they're after him. 42 tackles. He's 6'2". He's from the state of Texas. Again, Coach Ryan's in that state of Texas hard, right? There's dogs there. He knows that they need to rebuild their secondary, especially when you consider they're going to lose, I would say probably at least 2 out of the 3 corners that they're going to start this year. And safety-wise, Tafiq Byard, I don't remember if I think he's NFL draft eligible. I think if he's the guy that we all think he could be on his way out. So they need some defensive back help. This next guy, really interesting recruit, I think. His name is Julius Miles from Florida, listed at 6'6", 210. I think he's kind of viewed as a wide receiver / tight end hybrid, depending on which school wants him, right? A lot of schools look at that size and they go, okay, we could put some weight on that frame and you could be a really good tight end. You have the great ball skills because he plays receiver right now. So he's playing in Florida, playing receiver, and he's a freak athlete. 27.5 points per game in basketball, 10.7 rebounds, 59 catches for 895 yards and 7 touchdowns this past season. He also runs track. So Coach Prime is valuing size. They're valuing guys who play multiple sports, and they're valuing athleticism. And I don't know how many of these guys are going to commit this weekend, right? But I think you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, right? A perfect weekend's getting all 6. I think a realistic weekend, or at least a successful weekend, is getting at least 2 or 3 of them, right? If you go 0 for 6, I think that's pretty tough, right? Especially since Colorado doesn't have any commits at the high school ranks yet. So you'd love to see them get 1. All it takes is 1 for guys to start looking Colorado's way. We've seen in the past where they get 1 guy to commit, and then all of a sudden they start pouring in, right? Colorado gets commitments in bunches. So we'll see if this is the weekend that they sort of start getting that snowball of recruiting rolling. When we come back, Deion Sanders is getting blamed for Shedeur Sanders' NFL draft fall. And I think we need to talk about why. I understand it, but why I also think it's an excuse. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. So Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Price on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save up to 60% off. Here's why I use Game Time. The all-in pricing means there's no surprise fees at checkouts. I like to know what I'm paying before I get to the little submit button. All of a sudden, there's $100 extra that I wasn't ready for. Game Time takes that away, and they take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day. Make me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about it. The NFL draft slide of Shedeur Sanders is still a popular topic, right? People are upset about his number. People are upset about about how teams let him fall, right? People are upset about Tom Brady letting him fall, which I talked about yesterday. Tom Brady himself said he wasn't really involved in the selection process. And multiple reports have confirmed that while they consulted him, Tom Brady was not calling the shots. And so now the latest out of the NFL draft is Deion Sanders' involvement hurting Shedeur Sanders. Now, let me preface this. I, for one, I missed on this, right? I thought Shedeur Sanders was a guaranteed top 10 pick. I thought when Deion Sanders said things like it'll be an Eli if there's certain teams we don't want him to play for, I thought, you know what? This quarterback class is so shallow. Shedeur's that good, and Deion Sanders is that influential that possibly they could do that, right? I thought Deion Sanders, if the right cards were displayed or presented, he could have played that hand and been like, hey, we don't want Shedeur to go to X team, right? So ignore that. We're not going there, right? So don't even interview him. I do think that's why some of those reports that came out where it was like Shedeur wasn't really giving it his all at certain meetings. I think that plan was sort of being put into place behind the scenes, and I do think it backfired a little bit. That being said, I think people are using a lot of other reasons as to why Shedeur fell against him. I think, quite frankly, once he fell to the first round, he was viewed as a backup, right? Once you fall to the first couple rounds, you're viewed as a backup, and teams look at the exterior noise and his following, his popularity, and I think they were scared of the fan reaction to take him and not have him play right away. So this is a quote from an executive from the interview with the USA Today. I think his dad's involvement hurt him. Some of the things his dad said, I think, weighed on people's minds. And I could see that, right? At one point, there was a rumor that he wouldn't play in cold weather. Or not a rumor, that's what he said. And then he was saying it'll be an Eli, right? And I thought he could have pulled it off, but clearly the NFL this time around was like, no, not today. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, how Shedeur's, career pans out. But this is a quote that was given. We like Shedeur. This is, again, high-ranking decision maker. But you can't separate the other stuff from the physical abilities. And the other stuff, the writer says he alluded to, didn't involve any major off-the-field issues. Instead, it was expressed that Shedeur had leadership style issues, flashy persona, and they didn't like that he wore his own personal clothing line. So of these reasons, the one where they blame Deion, I think that is them saying Deion Sanders is so popular, so influential, that teams are scared to draft Shedeur and not have things go his way immediately, because then all it takes for Deion Sanders is for one tweet, one comment, be like, well, the Browns lost by 36 the other day. I think Shedeur would change that, right? Or an eyeball emoji after, say, Kenny Pickett throws a pick six, right? That's all it takes. And this is for the Browns took that risk, right? But other teams look at that and they go, is it worth it, right? Do we want the the surrounding people that come with Shedeur Sanders. And I think Deion Sanders is kind of being used as the scapegoat in the sense of like they're saying it's what he said. I think it's more so they're scared of his influence, right? I talked about how he was the most powerful coach in college football the other day. And I think a lot of people missed the point of that. They were like, he hasn't won any games yet. And it's like, it's not about winning games. Like, obviously winning games is important, but Deion Sanders has such a reach, such a following, and such a brand that I think it's scared and intimidated a lot of teams. So I think by this one NFL executive saying, hey, the dad here was kind of scaring us away, or the dad's involvement, the dad's comments, it's like, okay, let's be for real. Don't blame him wanting the best for his son as a reason for him falling. If you said we're scared of all the factors that I've been saying, where it's the following, the cultural impact, and the influence, if you just say we weren't able to handle that, that's fine. But I'm kind of in between on people saying, oh, his dad shouldn't have said this or that. I think at the end of the day, and this is if people disagree with me, I'll be quite frank about my thoughts on how Deion Sanders handled the draft situation. I think he got bad information. And I think Shedeur and himself, they carried themselves through the entire process as if they were as if Shedeur was going top 5 guaranteed, like no questions asked. And I think they butchered the process, right? I think Shedeur, again, I wasn't in the interview, so I don't know. But from what I was told, it didn't go well. I think maybe he puts in more effort if they were getting the proper feedback. Maybe he throws at the NFL scouting combine, which, I mean, a lot of top prospects don't. But maybe if he's getting the proper feedback, maybe he does, and maybe it helps him. Another thing, maybe he participates in the East-West Shrine Bowl or the Reese's Senior Bowl, right? It was very shocking that he went to the Shrine Bowl in general. And then it turned out it was kind of like a ploy to get people to go there to watch his teammates, which, I mean, it's fine. But then he didn't participate in anything. Then he wasn't even there for the last couple days of practice because I was there. I didn't see him, right? He showed up, I think it was the first. He showed up the day I wasn't there, unfortunately. Didn't get to see him, talk to him. But he didn't participate in anything pre-draft out of Colorado's Pro Day. And even then, because he didn't participate in the Big 12 Pro Day, even then people didn't walk away from Colorado's Pro Day going, wow, that was great, right? So I think if there's anything you could say about Deion Sanders and how he handled the pre-draft process, I think it's the people around him who was giving him advice or giving him feedback where it was like, yeah, dude, for sure. He's for sure going first round. He got bad feedback. It is what it is. It happened, and now Shedeur is with the Browns, and I think it's still a good opportunity. But this whole, like, oh, what his dad said, Caleb Williams' family was complex, we'll call it, right? They were causing issues. There's been prospects in the past where their family has been very overbearing, and they've been fine. Now, they probably haven't had the same impact or influence as Deion Sanders, but that being said, I feel like there's a little bit of a crossover. I think there's a little bit of a gray area here where now people can just sort of blame any and everything they want to when it comes to Shedeur, and it's like, well, that's true, but I don't think that should be the case. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about Travis Hunter's legacy and why I don't think it's being talked about enough because he's a generational athlete on and off the field. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles like EA Sports College Football 25 or Call of Duty Black Ops 6. As easily as you streamed your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million shows and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Let's talk Travis Hunter's legacy, right? I think it's not being discussed enough because I think, and it's not to no fault of Shedeur or Deion. I think the ongoing events that happened with him during the draft kind of overshadowed the rest of the class, and it's not their fault, right? It's who people are interested in. But I do think Travis Hunter deserves some more shine, and I wanted to give him that because everything he did during his career impressed me. He was genuinely one of the craziest athletes I've ever seen. And John Garcia, Rivals recruiting analyst, who's at one point former Locked On co-host of Locked On Buffs, we talked about it when we first started this podcast, I guess 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago, whenever it was. And he said that Travis was one of the best athletes he had ever seen. And part of me was, I had seen Travis play at Jackson State, but he wasn't playing at the same level. And I had seen the high school clips, but I mean, every one of these 5-star recruits looks elite in high school, right? It's hard to be like, wow, that guy's like, they all look really good. But once Travis got to Colorado, I was personally stunned at how dominant of a figure he was on both sides of the ball, right? You think of Miles Jack, right? You think of a Dory Jackson, Charles Woodson. I'm trying to think of, there was a Jack Coletto, the Oregon State guy. I'm trying to think of other guys that play both ways. And it's far and few between where they are solid at one position and then they're great at the other. Travis was genuinely great at both positions, and the Jaguars are going to give him a chance to play both positions, which I love. That being said, I don't think here's some of the things he did. Heisman, Walter Camp Award, AP College Football Player of the Year, Sporting News College Football Player of the Year, Chuck Bednarik Award, Fred Biletnikoff Award, Lott Trophy, Paul Hornung Award, unanimous All-American. That was all this year. It's impressive. He also had a 3.7 to 3.9 GPA, was an academic All-American, and he made sure he walked the stage for graduation. I think it was today, Thursday, that is, for Colorado, right? I think he shows that he's more than an athlete. I think that shows he's he's a guy that was doing everything that everyone asked of him. And it's one of those things where it's like, you have to love the effort that he put into being a Colorado Buffalo on and off the field. I think he exemplifies greatness as an athlete and as a person. And I think one of the reasons that Colorado's, which I'm pretty sure Deion Sanders has quite a culture going on there where they value academic integrity. They value academics and being a complete person. Because I've seen Deion Sanders help people out secure jobs outside of football, right? I think Travis Hunter being the best player in college football and also being a great student really is a testament to the culture that Colorado has built. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. So props to Travis. Congratulations to him and all the guys who graduated. And I wish them luck on their next steps of life, whether that's in football, business, real estate, whatever it is. I wish them all the best. And congratulations to them on a tremendous career at college football and at Colorado in college football. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow if you haven't already. Give me 5 stars wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so I can keep my job and we can grow this community even more. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in, and I hope all of you have a great Thursday. See you guys tomorrow.